The morning sun cast purple light across the crystal gardens of Kepler Prime. High Counselor Veltar walked slowly between the glowing trees, her 6 delicate arms reaching out to touch the warm crystal branches. The Zilani people had grown these gardens for over 1,000 years. Each crystal held the memories and songs of her ancestors. Veltar smiled as young Zilani children played among the smaller crystals. Their laughter rang like tiny bells in the soft air. This was how life should be. Peaceful, beautiful, safe. She did not know that death was coming from the stars. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Coalition Defense Station high. Above Kepler Prime, he watched the peaceful world turn slowly below him. Green fields and crystal cities sparkled in the sunlight. It was hard to believe that war was coming to this quiet place. Jake was one of only 50 humans in Coalition space. His people came from a world called Earth, far away from the main galactic routes. Most Coalition species thought humans were too dangerous to live among them. They called Earth a death world. They said it was too violent, too harsh for civilized beings. Jake did not feel dangerous. He felt worried. "Captain Morrison," said Lieutenant Zara, a tall, blue-skinned Altarian, "we have incoming ships on long-range sensors." Jake turned to look. At the main screen, red dots appeared at the edge of the star system. There were many of them. Too many. How many ships? Jake asked. "Scanning now, sir." Zara's face went pale blue, which meant she was afraid. "Sir, I count over 3,000 vessels." Jake felt his heart sink. The entire Coalition defense fleet in this sector had only 200 ships. They were good ships, built for exploration and research, but they were not built for war. "Send a message to all Coalition forces," Jake said. "Tell them the Vorthic Empire has arrived." On the planet below, Ambassador Amy Richardson was meeting with the Zilani Council in their great crystal hall. Amy was the human diplomatic representative to this sector. She had been trying for months to convince the Coalition leaders that the Vorthic threat was real. "Honored counselors," Amy said, "you must begin evacuation procedures now. Our scouts report that the Vorthic fleet is much larger than we expected." High Counselor Veltar raised one of her hands. "Ambassador Richardson, we appreciate your concern. But surely there is still time for negotiation. The Vorthic are a warrior people." "Yes, but all beings can be reasoned with." Amy shook her head. "Counselor, with respect, you do not understand what the Vorthic are. They do not negotiate. They do not show mercy. They conquer and destroy. That is all they know." Another counselor spoke up. "But Ambassador, your own people were once considered dangerous warriors. Yet here you are, serving the cause of peace." Amy felt frustrated. The Coalition species were so peaceful, so trusting. They could not imagine a race that existed only to destroy others. "Please," she said, "just begin preparing evacuation ships. If I am wrong, you can always cancel the evacuation." Before Veltar could answer, the crystal walls of the hall began to glow red. Warning lights flashed throughout the building. A voice spoke over the communication system. "All citizens, this is an emergency. Unknown ships have entered our star system. Please remain calm and await further instructions." In space above the planet, General Crix Than stood on the command deck of his massive warship. The Vorthic general was 7 feet tall, covered in thick gray scales. His 4 arms each held different weapons. His red eyes looked down at the small blue and green world below. "Pathetic," he growled. "Look how weak they are. No defenses, no weapons. This will be over quickly." "General," said his aide, "the Coalition Defense Fleet is moving to intercept us." Crixton laughed, a sound like grinding metal. 200 ships against 3,000? They are either very brave or very stupid. Order, sir. Destroy them all. Leave no survivors. The galaxy must learn what happens when they resist the Vorthic Empire. Captain Jake Morrison watched the Vorthic fleet spread out like a dark cloud across space. Their ships were ugly things, covered in spikes and weapons. They looked like metal monsters ready to devour everything in their path. All ships, this is Captain Morrison. Jake spoke into his communicator. Form defensive line Alpha. Protect the evacuation routes at all costs. The coalition ships moved into position. They were beautiful vessels, with smooth curves and bright colors. Next to the Vorthic fleet, they looked like butterflies facing a swarm of wasps. The battle began with a flash of light that could be seen from the planet's surface. The coalition ships fought bravely. They used every trick they knew, every advanced technology they had developed over centuries of peaceful exploration. But it was not enough. The Vorthic had only one technology, and they had perfected it. The technology of war. One by one, the coalition ships were destroyed. Their shields failed under the massive firepower of the Vorthic weapons. Their hulls cracked and split open like broken eggs. Jake watched his friends die. Ships he had served on, captains he had shared meals with, all gone in bursts of fire and twisted metal. Sir, Lieutenant Zara said, her voice shaking, our shields are at 20%. All other ships in our group are destroyed. Jake looked at his crew. They were all young, all from different peaceful species. They had joined the coalition to explore the stars, to make friends with other races. They had never expected to die. In battle, abandon ship, Jake ordered. Get to the escape pods. What about you, sir? Zara asked. I have to send a message first? Jake sat down at the communication station as his crew evacuated. His hands moved quickly over the controls. He set up a long-range transmission aimed at a distant part of the galaxy, a part that most coalition species did not believe existed. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Coalition Defense Force, he spoke into the recorder. We are under attack by the Vorthic Empire. Our defenses have failed. Kepler Prime is about to fall. 3 billion innocent beings are about to die. He paused, watching as Vorthic ships began to land on the planet below. Fire bloomed across the crystal cities. This is our last transmission. The coalition has fallen. If anyone receives this, remember us. Remember that we tried to stop them. And if you can hear this message, if you are out there somewhere, please help them. Help the ones who will come after us. Jake ended the transmission and sent it racing across the galaxy toward Earth. Then he ran for the last escape pod as his ship exploded around him. On the planet below, High Counselor Veltar stood in her burning crystal garden. The beautiful trees were shattered, their light fading. Vorthic soldiers marched through the streets, their weapons destroying everything in their path. She thought of Ambassador Richardson's warning. The human had been right. The Vorthic could not be reasoned with. They were destroyers, nothing more. As the Vorthic ships darkened the sky above her world, Veltar sent out one last prayer to the stars. She prayed that someone, somewhere, would hear their cries for help. She did not know that her prayer was already racing through space, carrying a message to a distant world where dangerous beings lived. Beings who had been waiting for such a call. Beings who were about to answer. 3 months had passed since Kepler Prime burned. Commander Ben Hayes stood in the command center of Sanctuary 7, looking at reports that filled him with dread. The old mining station floated in empty space, far from any star system. It was supposed to be hidden. It was supposed to be safe, but nowhere was safe anymore. Commander, said Dr. Lisa Park, walking up to his desk with a data pad in her hands. I have the latest refugee reports. Ben looked at the human doctor. Lisa had been studying alien biology for the Coalition for 5 years. Now she spent her days listening to horror stories and trying to understand why the Vorthik were so cruel. How many more ships arrived today? Ben asked. 17. Most of them are damaged. They barely made it here. Lisa sat down heavily. Ben, the stories they tell. Entire worlds stripped clean. Species that have lived for thousands of years, just gone. Ben nodded sadly. He had heard too many of these stories. The Vorthik did not just conquer planets. They destroyed everything that made them special. They took all the resources, enslaved the strong, and killed the rest. What about the Helix Nebula colonies? Ben asked. Gone. All 12 worlds. The Crystalline Collective tried to surrender, but the Vorthik killed them anyway. They said surrender was a sign of weakness. Ben closed his eyes. The Crystalline Collective had been one of the oldest and wisest species in the galaxy. Their crystal cities had been works of art that took centuries to grow. Now they were space dust. In the engineering section of the station, Megan Torres worked. Alone in the dark. The human engineer had told everyone she was fixing the long-range sensors. That was not exactly true. Megan was building something much more important. Something that might save them all. She had been working for weeks to modify the station's communication array. The Coalition leaders thought she was just making repairs. They did not know she was trying to send a message to a place they thought was just a legend. Earth. Most Coalition species believe that humans came from some distant, unimportant world. Only a few people knew the truth. Earth was real, and it was much closer than anyone thought. But the Coalition had banned most humans from their space long ago. They said humans were too dangerous. Megan hoped they were right. Status report, came a voice behind her. Megan turned to see Senator Thulvis, the leader of the remaining Coalition government. The tall, thin alien had green skin and large eyes that always looked worried. Just finishing the sensor repairs. Senator, Megan said, trying to look casual. Good. We need every advantage we can get. Thulvis looked around the engineering bay. Engineer Torres, can I ask you something? Of course. In your professional opinion, do we have any chance of stopping the Vorthik? Megan stopped working and looked at the senator. She could see the fear in his large eyes. Honestly? No, not with what we have. I was afraid you would say that. Thulvis walked away slowly, his shoulders bent with the weight of leading a dying civilization. When he was gone, Megan went back to her secret work. She connected the last few wires and activated the new communication system. If this worked, her message would reach Earth in about 2 weeks. If anyone there was listening. In the medical bay, Dr. Lisa Park studied data from Vorthik prisoners, captured in recent battles. She had been trying to understand what made them so aggressive. What she found made her sick. The Vorthik had changed themselves. Through genetic engineering and cybernetic implants, they had removed their ability to feel fear, doubt, or mercy. They had turned themselves into perfect killing machines. It explains everything, she said to her assistant, a young Altarian named Kef. They cannot stop fighting because they have made it impossible for themselves to stop. Is there a way to reverse it? Kef asked. Maybe. But it would take years of research, and we would need living subjects. Lisa shook her head. We do not have years. We have weeks at best, Dr. Park, came a voice over the communication system. Please report to the command center immediately. Lisa found Commander Hayes looking at a tactical display with several other officers. His face was pale. Lisa, I need you to look at this, Ben said. Tell me what you think. The display showed a star map of the local area. Red dots marked the positions of Vorthik fleets. There were hundreds of them, spread across dozens of star systems. They are not just conquering randomly, Lisa said after studying the pattern. They are conducting a systematic search. Searching. For what? For us? For any remaining coalition forces? Lisa traced the pattern with her finger. Look at how they are moving. They are checking every system, every possible hiding place. How long before they find us? 2 weeks. Maybe 3 if we are lucky. Ben felt his heart sink. 3 weeks was not enough time to evacuate everyone. There were over 2 million refugees crammed into stations and ships throughout this empty region of space. Most of their vessels were damaged and could barely make short jumps. Begin evacuation procedures, Ben ordered. All non-essential personnel and civilians are to board transport ships immediately. As the command staff hurried to carry out his orders, Ben looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Vorthic fleets were coming. Soon they would find Sanctuary 7, and the last free beings in the galaxy would be forced to run again. But where could they run to? The Vorthics seemed to be everywhere. They were faster, stronger, and completely without mercy. The coalition had been built on peace and cooperation. They had no weapons that could stop an enemy that lived only for war. Days later, Megan Torres received an answer to her secret message. It was short and simple, but it made her hands shake with excitement. Message received, help is coming. Maintain position. Terran Defense Force en route. Megan stared at the message. Terran Defense Force. That meant Earth had a military. A real military, not the small defense ships that the Coalition used for. Emergencies. She wanted to tell Commander Hayes immediately. But something held her back. The Coalition leaders had spent decades keeping humans away from their civilization. They thought humans were too dangerous to trust. Maybe it was time to find out if they were right. 3 days later, long-range sensors detected Vorthic scout ships at the edge of the system. Sanctuary 7 had been found. All ships begin immediate evacuation, Commander Hayes announced. This is not a drill. As ships launched from the station and scattered into deep space, Megan Torres sent one final message toward Earth. They found us. We are running. Please hurry. Then she joined the desperate flight into the darkness, hoping that help would arrive before it was too late. The refugee fleet drifted through empty space, running dark and silent. 200 ships carried the last free beings in the galaxy. They had been fleeing for a week since leaving Sanctuary 7. Food was running low. Hope was running lower, Commander. Ben Hayes sat in his quarters aboard the command ship, reading old files. The Coalition database contained thousands of records about different species. Most were boring reports about trade agreements and cultural exchanges. But one file was marked with red warnings. Classification Level 7. Restricted access. Subject: Species 347b. Common name: humans. Origin: Sol system, planet Earth. Ben had never read a Level 7 file before. He almost put it away. But with death following behind them, and nowhere left to run, what did security levels matter anymore? The file was written 43 years ago, after humanity's first contact with the Coalition. Ben read with growing amazement. Initial contact established with species claiming origin from Sol 3. Designation Earth. Physical examination reveals species adapted to Class 12 Deathworld conditions. Gravity 1.7 times galactic. Standard. Atmospheric pressure 2.3 times standard. Surface temperature ranges lethal to most Coalition species. Ben kept reading. The report described humans as incredibly adaptable and resilient. They could survive in environments that would kill most other beings within minutes. But what shocked Ben the most was the psychological evaluation. Species demonstrates concerning levels of aggression and tactical thinking. Natural response to threats involves immediate violence rather than negotiation. Military structure highly developed despite relatively primitive technology. Recommendation: limit contact to prevent cultural contamination. Cultural contamination? Ben said out loud. They were afraid of us? A soft knock came at his door. Come in, Ben called. Dr. Kate Williams entered, carrying a datapad. Ben had known Kate for 2 years. She was quiet, intelligent, and one of the best strategic analysts in the Coalition. She was also human, though Ben had never thought much about what that meant. Commander, I have something to show you, Kate said. Something I probably should have told you months ago. She sat down across from his desk and activated her datapad. A tactical display appeared showing Vorthic fleet movements and battle patterns. I have been studying the Vorthic for 3 years, Kate said. Not just their technology or their numbers. Their strategy, their weaknesses. Ben looked at the display. What did you find? They are predictable. They use the same attack patterns, the same formations, the same tactics in every battle. They rely on overwhelming force because it has always worked. That does not help us. We do not have overwhelming force. Kate smiled for the first time in weeks. No, but we have something they have never faced before. Something they do not know. How to fight. What? Humans. Before Ben could ask what she meant, his communication system activated. Commander Hayes, please report to the main bridge immediately. We have a situation. Ben and Kate hurried to the bridge. They found Historian. Zephiel waiting for them. The old scholar was one of the few beings who remembered the early days of the Coalition. Commander, Zephiel said, I have been reviewing our passenger lists. I found something interesting. The Historian activated the main display. Names and faces appeared, showing Coalition personnel from different ships in the fleet. These are all humans, Zephiel said, but look at their positions. Ben studied the list. There were more humans in the fleet than he had realized. They worked as engineers, doctors, security officers, and researchers. Many had served in the Coalition for years, without anyone paying attention to their species. There are 73 humans in our fleet, Zephiel continued. I checked their backgrounds. Many have military training from Earth. Several have Special Forces experience. A new voice spoke from behind them. Actually, there are more than that. Everyone turned. A Coalition security officer named Alex Turner stepped forward. Ben had seen him many times, but never really talked to him. I am Captain Alex Turner, Earth Special Forces, the man said. And I am not the only one who has been hiding their real job. As if responding to a signal, other Coalition personnel began stepping forward. Dr. Sarah Blake from the medical bay. Engineer Chris Blake from the power systems. Communications Officer Danny Ross. One by one, they revealed themselves. We have been here for years, Captain Turner explained. Watching, learning, preparing. Preparing for what? Commander Hayes asked. For this, Turner said simply. Earth knew this day would come. The Coalition is peaceful and trusting. Sooner or later, someone like the Vorthic would appear. Someone who could not be reasoned with or negotiated with. Dr. Kate Williams stood up. The Coalition banned most humans from their space because they were afraid of us. They said we were too aggressive, too violent. They thought we would corrupt their peaceful society. They were not wrong, Captain Turner said. We are violent. We come from a world that tried to kill us every day. We learned to fight because we had to. But we also learned to protect those who could not protect themselves. Ben felt confused and hopeful at the same time. How many of you are there? Here, in this fleet? About 40 trained soldiers. In Coalition space overall? A few thousand. That is still not enough to stop the Vorthic. Turner smiled, and for the first time, Ben saw something dangerous in the human's eyes. Commander, we are not your entire army. We are your scouts. What do you mean? The message Engineer Torres sent to Earth? It was not the first one. We have been sending reports home for months. Earth knows about the Vorthik. They know about the threat to the Coalition. Ben felt his heart start to race. Are you saying Earth is sending help? I am saying Earth has already sent help. The Terran Defense Force left our system 3 weeks ago. How many ships? Turner paused. All of them. Before anyone could respond, Lieutenant Zara called out from the sensor station. Commander, I am detecting massive energy signatures at the edge of the system. Vorthik? Ben asked, feeling his brief. Hope die. No, sir. These signatures are different. Much different. The main screen activated, showing long-range sensor data. Dozens of contacts appeared, approaching at high speed. But their energy patterns were unlike anything in the Coalition. Database. Captain Turner looked at the screen and smiled. Those are not Vorthik ships. How can you tell? Because I recognize the engine signatures. Those are Terran heavy cruisers. Turner activated his personal communicator and spoke in a language Ben did not recognize. English. A moment later, a reply came back in the same language. Admiral Clark sends his regards. Turner translated. The cavalry has arrived. As the fleet watched, more and more contacts appeared on their sensors. Hundreds of ships, then thousands. All of them moving with the deadly precision of a military force that had been born for war. Ben looked at the growing display with amazement. How many ships did Earth send? Captain Turner checked his communicator again. 15,000 combat vessels, plus support ships. That is impossible. No one has that many warships. Turner looked at him with that dangerous smile again. Commander, you still do not understand what Earth is. We are not a peaceful exploration society. We are a military civilization that learned to explore. Every human world has defenses. Every human ship can fight. We have been preparing for war since the day we reached the stars. On the screen, the human fleet continued to arrive. Their ships were dark and angular, built for function rather than beauty. They moved like predators, spread out in attack formations that spoke of centuries of military experience. Contact the Vorthik fleet, Turner said to the communications officer. Tell them the humans have arrived. Tell them they have exactly one chance to surrender. Ben watched the approaching fleet and felt something he had not felt in months. Not just hope, anticipation. The Deathworlders had come to war. Admiral Ryan Clark stood on the bridge of the battleship Vengeance, watching the Vorthik fleet spread across space like a dark cancer. His weathered face showed no emotion, but his gray eyes burned with cold fire. Behind him, 15,000 human warships waited for his command. Admiral, reported his communications officer, the Vorthak fleet commander is responding to our surrender demand. Put him on screen. General Crix then appeared on the main display, his scaled face twisted with rage. You dare demand our surrender? We are the Vorthik Empire. We have conquered 1,000 worlds. And now you face Earth, Ryan said simply. You have 5 minutes to withdraw from this system. Crix then laughed, showing rows of sharp teeth. Humans, the weak species hiding in the outer rim. We will crush you like all the others. 4 minutes and 30 seconds. The Vorthik general's eyes widened with anger. You think your little fleet can stop us? We have fought for centuries. We know every trick of war. Ryan's expression never changed. 4 minutes. Crix then cut the transmission. Ryan turned to his tactical officer. All ships, battle stations. Prepare for immediate engagement. Across the human fleet, thousands of ships came alive with deadly purpose. These were not the sleek, elegant vessels of the Coalition. Human ships looked like what they were. Weapons built to kill other weapons. Their hulls were thick armor. Their shapes were angular and brutal. Every line spoke of violence and death. Captain Nicole Grant climbed into her fighter in the launch bay of the young carrier Defiance. Around her, 500 other pilots prepared their ships for battle. The fighters were small, fast, and heavily armed, just like their pilots. "Attention, Raptor Squadron." Nicole spoke into her helmet radio. "We have been waiting 3 years for this moment. The Vorthik think they are the greatest warriors in the galaxy. Today, we teach them they are wrong." "Copy that, Raptor Leader," came the responses from her squadron. Nicole had trained these pilots herself. They were all volunteers from Earth's colonial worlds. They had grown up hearing stories about the peaceful coalition species being hunted and killed by the Vorthik. They were ready to fight. "Launch in 30 seconds. Came the order from the carrier bridge. Nicole felt her heart rate slow down, her breathing become steady. This was what humans did. This was what they were born for. War. On the command ship of the refugee fleet, Commander Ben Hayes watched the human fleet deploy with amazement. The ships moved with perfect coordination, spreading into attack formations that looked like nothing he had ever seen before. "Look at them," Dr. Kate Williams said, standing beside him. "Every ship knows exactly where to go. No confusion, no hesitation. How is that possible?" Ben asked. Captain Alex Turner answered from behind them. "Because we have been practicing this battle for 20 years. Earth's military academies run simulations of fighting the Vorthik every month. Every ship captain knows the plan. On the main screen, the human fleet finished its deployment. The formation looked like a giant arrow pointed straight at the Vorthik forces. But Ben noticed something strange. "They are outnumbered," he said. "The Vorthik have more ships." Turner smiled that dangerous smile again. "Numbers do not win battles, Commander. Tactics do." The battle began when Admiral Clark gave a single word. "Execute." The human fleet erupted into motion. But they did not charge forward like Ben expected. Instead, they split into dozens of smaller groups, each one moving in a different direction. The Vorthik fleet tried to respond, but their movements were slow and predictable. General Crix then watched from his command ship as the human forces scattered like seeds in the wind. "What are they doing? This is not how battles are fought." "Sir," said his tactical officer, "they are moving too fast. Our targeting systems cannot lock on to them." "Then fire anyway. Destroy them all." The Vorthik ships opened fire with massive energy weapons that could crack planets. But the human ships were not where the weapons expected them to be. They twisted and turned through space like living things, always moving, never staying still long enough to be hit. Captain Nicole Grant led her fighter squadron into the heart of the Vorthik formation. The enemy ships were huge, covered with weapons and armor. It looked impossible to destroy. "Raptor Squadron, target the engine sections," Nicole ordered. "Hit them fast and get out." Her fighters dove toward the Vorthik battleships like angry wasps. The enemy tried to swat them with defensive guns, but the human pilots were too quick. They slipped between the massive ships, firing precise shots at critical systems. Nicole watched one Vorthik cruiser lose power and drift helplessly as her fighters destroyed its engines. "That is how we do it," she said. "Next target bearing 2-7-0. On his command ship, Admiral Clark watched the battle unfold exactly as planned. The Vorthik were strong, but they fought like they always had. Straight lines, direct attacks, overwhelming force. Humans fought differently. They fought smart. "Major Rodriguez," Clark spoke into his communicator. "You are clear for boarding operations." Major Sam Rodriguez smiled as he prepared his Marines for assault. "Copy that, Admiral. Time to show these lizards what close combat really means." The human Marines launched in small, fast ships that looked like metal bullets. They flew straight at damaged Vorthic vessels, ignoring the defensive fire. Where coalition species would try to disable and capture, humans had a different plan. Sam's ship crashed through the hull of a Vorthic cruiser, and his marines poured out, weapons ready. The Vorthic soldiers were bigger and stronger than humans, but they had never fought an enemy that seemed to enjoy violence. "Move fast, hit hard," Sam ordered as his marines spread through the enemy ship. No prisoners, no mercy. The Vorthic defenders found themselves facing warriors who fought with a fury they could not understand. Humans did not just fight to win. They fought like their families were watching. They fought like their honor depended on it. In the engineering section of the human flagship, Ashley Miller monitored the weapon systems with satisfaction. Human technology was not more advanced than Vorthic equipment, but it was designed by people who understood war at a level that went beyond technology. "Admiral," she reported, "all weapon systems operating at 100% efficiency. We are ready for the final phase." Admiral Clark nodded. The battle had been going for 2 hours. The Vorthic fleet was larger, but half their ships were now damaged or destroyed. The human forces had lost only a few dozen vessels. "All ships," Clark announced, "begin final assault. Show them what happens when they threaten innocent people." The scattered human fleet suddenly came together like a closing fist. Every ship that had been dancing around the edges of the battle now charged straight at the Vorthic center. It was not the wild charge of desperate beings. It was the calculated attack of predators who had been playing with their prey. General Crixton watched his mighty fleet crumble under the human assault. This was impossible. The Vorthic had never lost a battle. They were the greatest warriors in the galaxy. "Sir," his aide said urgently, "our losses are at 60%. We must retreat." "The Vorthic do not retreat." "Sir, if we stay, they will destroy us all." For the first time in his life, Crixton felt something he had never experienced before. Fear. These humans fought like demons. They showed no mercy, took no prisoners, and seemed to enjoy every moment of destruction they caused. "Signal the fleet," he said finally. "Full retreat. Get us out of here." As the Vorthic ships turned and fled into hyperspace, Admiral Clark watched with grim satisfaction. The enemy was beaten, but not destroyed. That was intentional. He wanted some of them to escape. He wanted them to spread the word. The humans had arrived. The galaxy had new protectors, and they were everything the peaceful species had always feared them to be. 2 weeks after the Great Battle, President Luke Anderson arrived at the rebuilt Sanctuary 7 station. The leader of Earth walked through halls filled with beings from dozens of different species. All of them stopped to stare at him as he passed. Luke was not what most aliens expected from the leader of a warrior race. He was average height, gray-haired, and wore simple clothes. But his eyes held the same quiet strength that all humans seemed to carry. The strength of someone who had grown up on a world that tried to kill him every day. "Mr. President, Commander," Ben Hayes said, greeting him at the main airlock. "Welcome to Sanctuary 7. "Thank you, Commander. I am sorry it took so long for us to get here." Ben shook his head. "Sir, you arrived exactly when we needed you most." They walked together toward the main conference room, where representatives from every surviving coalition species waited. Luke could see the fear and hope mixed in their alien faces. For months, they had been running and hiding. Now they did not know what to expect from their rescuers. "Have the Vorthic made contact?" Luke asked. "Yesterday. They sent a diplomatic ship under a white flag. They want to discuss surrender terms." Luke smiled slightly. "I bet they do." In the conference room, Senator Thildus stood as the human president entered. A thin green alien had led the coalition government through its darkest days. Now he faced a choice that would change the galaxy forever. President Anderson, Thulvis said formally. On behalf of the Coalition of Free Worlds, I welcome you to our space. Thank you, Senator. Though I believe your space and our space are about to become the same thing. Ambassador Hannah Foster, the lead human diplomat, activated holographic display showing the current situation. The map showed Vorthic territory in red, Coalition space in blue, and human space in green. The green section was much larger than anyone had expected. The Terran Federation controls 47 star systems, Hannah explained to the surprised alien leaders. We have been expanding quietly for 60 years, always staying away from Coalition trade routes. But why? Asked Dr. Lisa Park. Why? Did you hide from us? Because you were afraid of us, Luke said simply. Your government classified us as a dangerous species and banned us from your space. We respected that decision. High Counselor Veltar, who had survived the destruction of Kepler Prime, spoke up. We were wrong. We let our fear blind us to what you really were. And what were we? Protectors. You came to save us, even though we had rejected you. Luke nodded. That is what humans do. We protect those who cannot protect themselves. The door to the conference room opened, and General Kevin Murphy entered with 2 Vorthic prisoners. The alien warriors looked defeated and afraid. For the first time in their lives, they had met an enemy they could not defeat. These are Vorthic diplomatic representatives, General Murphy announced. They have a message from their Emperor. The lead Vorthic stepped forward reluctantly. His scales were pale, and his red eyes looked at the floor. The Vorthic Empire requests terms of surrender. A shocked silence filled the room. The most feared military force in the galaxy was asking for mercy. What terms do you offer? Luke asked. Complete withdrawal from all occupied territories. Return of all prisoners and stolen resources. Payment of war damages to affected worlds. And in return, we ask only that you do not destroy our home worlds. Our people have families, children. Luke looked around the room at the Coalition leaders. These beings had every right to demand revenge. The Vorthic had destroyed their worlds, killed their people, and nearly wiped out their entire civilization. What do you think, Senator? Luke asked Thulvis. The alien leader was quiet for a long moment. We are not a vengeful people, Mr. President. If they truly surrender, we will accept their terms. Good. General Murphy, tell the Vorthic Emperor that we accept their surrender, but there will be conditions. What conditions? The Vorthic diplomat asked nervously. Your military will be disbanded. Your warrior culture will end. Your people will learn to live in peace, or they will answer to us. The Vorthic nodded quickly. We understand. We accept. After the aliens left, the real negotiations began. Ambassador Foster presented the draft of what would become known as the Deathworld Compact. The agreement is simple, Hannah explained. The Coalition of Free Worlds formally invites humanity to join as full members and protectors. In return, Earth provides military defense for all Coalition space. What does that mean in practical terms? Asked Senator Thul Vest. Admiral Lauren Scott, commander of the human peacekeeping forces, answered, We will establish naval bases in key systems throughout Coalition territory. We will train Coalition forces in defensive tactics. And we will respond to any threats against member worlds. You would do this for us, even after we rejected you? Luke stood up and walked to the viewing window that looked out at the stars. Senator, humans have a saying, the strong protect the weak. It is not just what we do, it is who we are. But what do you get in return? The chance to explore the galaxy alongside friends instead of hiding in the shadows. The opportunity to learn from the wisdom of species that have lived in peace for centuries. And the knowledge that our children will grow up in a universe where freedom means something. The negotiations continued for 3 days. When they were finished, the Deathworld Compact was signed by every species in the coalition. For the first time in galactic history, a military alliance was created not for conquest, but for protection. 6 months later, construction crews from dozens of worlds worked together to rebuild Kepler Prime. Human engineers worked alongside Zelani crystal growers to create something new. The rebuilt cities combined the beauty of alien art with the strength of human defensive architecture. General Murphy walked through the construction site with High Counselor Veltar. The Zelani leader had aged during the war, but her hope had returned. "It is different than before," she said, looking at the new crystal gardens surrounded by shield generators and defensive platforms. "Is that bad?" Murphy asked. "No, it is better. Beautiful, but safe. We learned that sometimes beauty needs protection." They watched as human and alien children played together in the garden. The human children taught the aliens games that involved running and climbing. The alien children showed the humans how to make the crystals sing with their touch. "General," Veltar said, "may I ask you something?" "Of course. Why did your people really come?" The truth, not the diplomatic answer. Murphy was quiet for a moment, watching a human girl help a young Zelani boy reach a high crystal branch. "Because someone had to," he said finally. "Because in this big, dangerous universe, the strong protect the weak. That is not just human nature. That is the right thing to do." Above them, human patrol ships moved silently through the sky, keeping watch over the peaceful world below. The age of fear was over. The age of protected peace had begun. And at the edge of the system, monitoring stations scanned the stars for any threat that might come. If danger appeared, the message would go out instantly to a dozen human naval bases. The Deathworlders were watching. The galaxy was safe.